right, this is Module 2, Lesson 12. We're going to start talking about division of integers today. Now, we're going to do this by looking at a couple of different equations that you already are familiar with, stuff that you've learned back in the younger grade levels. We're going to look at some multiplication and division problems. So let's give these equations as our example. So 6 times 4 we know is 24. We also know that we can reverse that with the commutative property and do 4 times 6, which is also 24. All right, now let's take what we know about multiplication and write some division equations. We know that the product, when divided by one of these numbers, will give us an answer of the other. So 24 divided by 4 gives us 6, because 6 times 4 is 24. If we reverse that, 24 divided by 6 is 4, because 4 times 6 is 24. Now, notice that those are all positive numbers. Let's relate that to using integers. So let's take this 6 times 4. What if we made the 6 negative? So it would be negative 6 times 4. We learned for the last couple days that when we're multiplying, we are going to use SPAN. Okay, SPAN stands for same signs, positive answer, opposite signs, negative answer. So we have two signs or two numbers that are opposite signs, so our answer will be negative 24. Now let's use the commutative property. Let's reverse that. 4 times negative 6, opposite signs, negative answer. All right, what if I take this first problem, 6 and 4, and I make them both negative? Negative 6, negative 4. Now follow your rule, same signs, positive answer. So our answer would be positive 24. Let's use the commutative property, switch that around. So negative 4 and negative 6, same signs, positive answer. All right, let's go to 4 times 6. What if I take 4 times 6 and I make the 6 negative? Opposite signs, negative answer. What if I use the commutative property and reverse that? Actually, instead of doing that, let's take negative 4 times positive 6. Let's just reverse the negative sign instead. So negative 4 times 6 gives us negative 24. Opposite signs, negative answer. I'm actually going to go back up and do that up here too. Let's change this one. Instead of switching the numbers, let's take this as a positive 6, this as a negative 4. Let's just reverse the negative signs. Now that still gives us a negative answer because they are still opposite signs. All right, so let's go into our next example and start relating this to division. Okay, let's go back to the same equations that we had up in the example 1. Let's do that again. So 6 times 4 we know is 24. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 divided by 4 is 6. And 24 divided by 6 is 4. All right, we're going to use those over here along with this up here to relate that to our division. So let's start with negative 6 times 4. So up here we have negative 6 times 4. We said that was opposite signs, negative answer. But let's take this a step further and make these into division problems just like we did down here. So we would take our quotient, or I'm sorry, our product, negative 24, and divide it by the first number, which is negative 6. Now remember what I said earlier. Your answer times this number gives you this number. So negative 6 times 4 gives us negative 24. So when we divide negative 24 by negative 6, we get positive 4. Now, if I reverse that and do negative 24 divided by 4, what do we have to multiply that by to get negative 24? Well, that would be negative 6. All right, let's take the next group. Let's take negative 6 times negative 4. Negative times negative is positive. Now let's relate that to division. So 24 divided by negative 6. What number do you have to multiply negative 6 by to get positive 24? And that would be negative 4. And 24 divided by negative 4 would be negative 6, because negative 6 times negative 4 is positive 24. All right, last one. What if we did 6 times negative 4? Opposite signs, negative answer. Now let's relate that to division. So negative 24 divided by 6. What number times 6 gives us negative 24? That's negative 4. And negative 24 divided by negative 4 is 6. All right, so now that we have all of our facts down, let's turn the page and go through some examples. It says list the examples where of all the division problems that have produced a quotient that is negative. So we want anything where the answer is negative, just for the division problems. So if I look back at the chart that I just came up with, so let's see here. The first one I see is negative 24 divided by positive 4 gave us negative 6. That was one that had a negative answer. 24 divided by negative 6 gave us negative 4. That's another one that has a negative answer. 24 divided by negative 4 gave us negative 6. And the last one I see is negative 24 divided by 6 gave us negative 4. So these are all negative answers here. And I got that from this page right here. These are all my division problems. So if the quotient is a negative number, what must be true about the signs of the dividend and divisor? Remember, those are these two numbers right here, dividend and divisor. So take a look at it. When the answer was negative, what is true about these? Answer is negative. What is true about these? Negative answer. What is true? Negative answer. What is true? Do you notice that one of the numbers is positive and one of them is negative? Negative, positive, positive, negative, positive, negative, negative, positive. So we call that opposite signs. The whole time we've been learning our integers, we've been saying opposite signs, one positive, one negative. All right, so let's go back and list all of the examples that have positive answers. So we had 24 divided by 6 was 4. That was a positive answer. 24 divided by 4 was 6. Positive answer. We had negative 24 divided by negative 6 gave us a positive 4. And negative 24 divided by negative 4 gave us a positive 6. So these answers are all positive. So what do we know about the dividend and divisor for these? Positive, 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 negative, 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 negative. Notice that they're all the same. So what can we conclude about this? What would our rules be for dividing two integers? Well, if the quotient is negative, like we had up here, then the divisor and dividend have opposite signs. One was positive, one was negative. And when we divided, if we had a positive answer, then both of the signs were the same. So let's make this really easy to remember. Same signs, positive answer. Opposite signs, negative answer. What do you notice? I hope you're thinking to yourself right now that this is the same as multiplication. Our rules for division and our rules for multiplication end up being the same exact thing. So let's use these rules then to think about some other questions. Is the quotient of two integers always an integer? Well, let's figure this out. We just did a lot of them where they were, right? So we had negative 24 divided by negative 6, positive 4. So is that an integer? Absolutely. So that's an example of when it is an integer, but will that always happen? What if I took negative 6 and divided by negative 24? 6 divided by 24 is different than 24 divided by 6. This actually gives us 6 over 24, because remember, fractions are the same thing as division. And 6 over 24 is 1/4. Now, it was 1/4 an integer. By definition, an integer is a negative number, a positive number, and 0. All whole numbers, no decimals or fractions. So this would not be an integer. We call that a counter example. And you can just say this is not an integer. So could we say that the quotient of two integers is always an integer? Nope, because if you put the smaller number first, they will end up being fractions. So quotient of two integers is not always an integer. All right, let's talk about something else that we're going to see when we are dividing. We talked a little bit about this earlier when we were talking about fractions, but I want to relate that to division. It says, are the answers to the three quotients below the same or different? Now, I have to remind you that division is the same thing as fractions. So this right here is negative 14 over 7. Opposite signs give us a negative answer, and 14 divided by 7 is 2. So in this case, it's negative 2. This one is 14 over negative 7. So 14 divided by 7 is 2. Opposite signs, negative answer. So far, negative 2, negative 2. This one has the negative sign out front, so it wants you to divide first, then take the negative. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. Now take the negative of that. Did we still get negative 2? Now, like I said before, we talked about this already. You can have the negative sign up top. You could have the negative sign on the bottom. Or you can have the negative sign out front. And all answers will always be the same. And that's because opposite signs gives you a negative answer. So if you have one negative sign in there, it will give you a negative answer. So yes, these are all the same. Because it only contains one negative sign. It doesn't matter if it's in the top, the bottom, or on the outside. All right, I'd like you to do some practice with division. So at this time, I'm going to ask you to go grab the practice worksheet, work on the practice worksheet. When you have finished that, then you can start the problem set. Good luck.